Hello, guys and girls, and welcome to episode 175 of the F.Reality Podcast. Sit back and relax as we inject this week's top VR news straight into your ears. We're going to be talking about some sad news about Resident Evil Village and the rumored Resident Evil 4 remake. We're going to be giving you our thoughts on Hitman 3's VR mode on the PlayStation VR, and talk about some fresh rumors of an upcoming VR and AR headset from Apple. To round up the show, Zim has got some new releases for you to look forward to next week. But for now, let me introduce you to the team and find out what's been their highlight of the week this week. And also let us know what you played in the chat so we can read out some of your highlights too. First up, there's only one thing that can stop this Hitman from taking down his target, and that is his mortal enemy, only known mysteriously as the Grid. His VR streamer, Assassim, Top 5. How you doing?
Yeah, how am I doing? Grid probably answers that one. My God. We'll go into that a little bit later. Heavy week, but glad to shove a couple of streams in towards the tail end of the week, playing absolute tripe. I do like that. It makes for a good show. My highlight of the week is going to be, because it was horror-inspired, I did two horror things I'll mention. So the first thing I did was a terrible little title on Oculus Home called The 7 Mile Ritual, in which case a perturbed truck driver, like a pickup or a tow truck driver, is ramming your pizza delivery car. You have to deliver pizzas to houses quickly to make money, upgrade your car, try to survive to the end. In the end, I got 4 out of 5 chapters in, and then the game crashed, and I said, "Feck this," and I got out. So
Oh, God.
that was a horror game abandoned. And the other little experiment I did this week, which I talked a little bit out on Twitter, was I said, you know what? I feel like it's been about time. I need to see if VR is good, just to watch a full-on film. So I was like, all right, I'll take a relatively short film. Took the film Unfriended on Netflix, sat down with the Netflix app. I laid down on my floor with the Netflix app, the soft strap on the back, because I'm still waiting on my Elite strap to get replaced. And I just watched the whole thing. So it was like hour 10, hour 20 or something. And the thing I noticed, I was like, resolution's not very good in this app. This is not great. And I don't know if it's like 420p or 480p, I've even heard from others. But the Netflix app at the moment is not sharp. It's not crisp. So if you want to watch some like 4K nature documentary, your eyes are going to hurt a little bit. And I don't mean, I just mean it doesn't look so pretty. There is a trick that you can use, which works excellently. If you happen to have a PC, you use Virtual Desktop. And with Virtual Desktop, you can pick whatever environment you want, sitting at a desk, home theaters, space, all that kind of thing. And you get really crisp. You get what the panel can deliver. So my ask out there is right now is just, I hope that Netflix, and if Netflix aren't looking at this, that maybe Oculus can give them a nudge, and get that resolution sorted. And I think this is something that's actually common. They probably just didn't think to relaunch the app or do any work on it at all. I don't know if the same is true for Amazon Video, but those two apps are a great thing, especially if you're sick, you're laid up, or you're just like fed up with your week like I was. Sit back, watch some horror, watch someone else go through torture. It makes you feel a little bit warm inside. So there you go.
Definitely.
There's my tip for the week.
Have you tried watching a 3D movie in VR yet?
I have. I'm trying to think if I've done it in Virtual Desktop. There's a few different apps that'll let you do that. There are 4D experiences that are really cool. So there's like a Michael Jackson Thriller where you're sitting in like a theater and there's smoke and like cutout zombies and stuff like that in a theater in VR. It's neat. So 4D stuff is fun, but you can find all kinds of side-by-side 3D stuff, which the 3D looks better than you'd ever seen it in a cinema. It sounds like you've got some experience with that.
Yeah, 100%. Like one of my favorite movies is Dredd, like Judge Dredd, the remake one with Carl Urban in.
I just watched that this week, actually. You mentioned it, I watched it. It's a bloody film. Jesus Christ.
It's great. And in 3D as well, it looks amazing because all those like kind of slow-mo scenes with like water and dust and stuff and bullets being flying through the air is great in 3D. So yeah, I'd highly recommend anyone to go and check out a 3D movie in VR, and definitely Dredd is one if you like kind of violent action movies. And
it stars, I don't know if this must have been pre-Game of Thrones, but it stars your lady from, because it was a 2012 film, I think.
That's right, yep.
Stars your lady from Game of Thrones, the evil sister.
Yep,
B-I-T-C-H.
right.
Yeah,
Cersei.
She's amazing in that.
Yeah,
great.
She's
in that
great.
Film. Good recommendation, Mike. I enjoyed Dredd. So, yeah.
If you like Dredd and you want similar sort of vibe, then The Raid and Raid 2 Redemption are also two very good action violent movies. So go check those out as well.
I will do.
But next up, he may look cute and fluffy, but don't let this deceive you. If you get too close, he will chew your face off. It's the one and only Rowdy VR. How you doing, Rowdy? You all right?
I'm doing really, really well. I'm really excited for this show to have a very good friend of mine on here as well. So I'm looking forward to have a little chat with him about the stuff that he's been doing. But my highlight of this week has been definitely a thing that we talked about last week, which was Battlescar. So I tried it out, and I have to say I was really impressed, and it just shows that, virtual reality is not only a gaming platform, it can be used, way beyond that kind of thing, than just like playing games on it. And I have to say, like, it literally felt like I went to like a new form of theater.
Yeah.
Especially during these times, it's really welcome to have an experience like that, since we can't pretty much go anywhere. We have an evening curfew here, even so. It's a very welcome change of things, of like, getting a little bit out of like, the drag of the day, and to go into something like this. And I think it opens up a lot of possibilities of, like a novel form of media, because not only do they tell a very interesting story, the way that they tell it is really well done, but especially the way that they play with visuals is, I think it's
I was going to say, Rowdy, for people listening who didn't catch last week's episode where we went into depth about it, can you explain a little bit about what Battlescar is? Because it sounds like a war film, but
like it's a story about two girls, told from the perspective from one of them.
I swear the rest of the sentence was going to say "and a cup," but anyway, go on.
Cup, yeah.
No cups involved.
And I mean, I don't want to give away too much, but it's a story about how they're starting a music band, basically, and the kind of things that they go through in order to get to a certain point. But you really need to just try it in order to experience, because it's not, I wouldn't say like the story is incredibly good, or like the way that it's being told is not very spectacular, but it's the combination of all those three things: the way that the story is made, the way that it is told, because the audio in it is very well done. It's binaural. It's like they do really cool things with that. It's situational, but that combined with the visuals is just incredible. The things that I liked the most were the kind of like 3D puppetry, where you have like this like little puppet in front of you that was playing out a scene that looked like you were overlooking into into that scene. I would love to see like even movies made like that, in that similar style, where you have like you switch from perspective to get like little puppet view, but also that first person view. Imagine like a movie like, I don't know, like Lord of the Rings or something like that being made in a style like that, playing around with the visuals. And what they did really well as well, and I think that's a very hard thing to do in virtual reality, is when you make 360 video, which this is, by the way, it's very hard to like direct attention of the viewer to where they actually need to look, since a lot of like, there's so much stuff going on around you, and you might miss things that are actually important to the story. But with this, I didn't have that at all, because they play around with text and they play around with audio. So you immediately focus on the place where you actually need to look, which I think is just very well done. So if people want to try it out, it's about I would say in total, like a 30 minutes experience, roughly. Yeah. It contains out of 3 chapters, if I'm correct. And it's really probably one of the best things that I've tried in VR that was not a VR game. Yeah,
I like that you called it theater, because last week I'd only played the first chapter, and I think my roundhouse opinion on Battlescar is that it's like I wanted a lot more of it, and that's always a compliment that I think you give to things that are short and sweet. And I just wanted, like, the thing that stood out to me is how much it chops and changes right the way through, so it really keeps your attention. Like, I never felt the need to check my phone or to stop. Like, you don't want to stop. You're gonna eat the thing in one sit.
And the length for it is just perfect. For this story.
Yeah, it's great for kind of like an after work thing. You're like, oh, I've got half an hour spare, just fire away. Yeah.
Nice, solid recommendation there. So next up, standing in for Nathy this week. He's the slippery snake of VR, a crack shot with broad enough shoulders to carry the team, and the only guy that I've ever known to be kicked out of Oculus Connect for wearing spandex. It's, of course, the Lonely Viper. How you doing, dude?
Hey, guys, how's it going? Oh, man, that is such an amazing intro. I mean, That must have taken you hours to come up with. I love it.
Many hours.
Need you to write for my channel, please. Oh man, that brings back memories getting kicked out of Oculus Connect.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Just seeing you escorted out by 2 guards.
Yeah. So
Excuse me, sir. You've got foam swords. You are a threat to the community. You need to leave.
And the funniest part was that one of the guards was wearing those socks.
Oh yeah, and he's like, hey, sorry, he brought me outside. And he's like, hey, bro, like, hey, listen, nothing personal, right? And then he shows me his socks, and it's like Deadpool. It's like awesome. Oh man, that was such an epic show.
So do you have any highlights this week, Viper? Anything you've been into that you want to share? Something you've really enjoyed just recently?
Yeah, absolutely. So the most recent thing I was doing was I was playing in a grapple tournament competition with just some other streamers, and it was an absolute blast. It's the weirdest thing. I suppose it's a bit of a dichotomy you see now with VR games, where if they don't have Quest support, there's so little momentum sometimes with getting a player base with just PC VR only. And I know a lot of people complain about Facebook coming in and sort of taking over the VR play space, but without Facebook, I mean, you really see that there's just not much of a market for developers to invest and build a game and a player base. So the reason I sort of slipped off on that tangent is because it is one of the most fun games I've played in virtual reality. And Zim, you would love it, because the thing is, it's like Unreal Tournament had sex with Pathfinder from Apex Legends, and they made a little baby, and it's just it's amazing. It's so three-dimensional. It's just fun in a kind of like old school Halo way, but also just flying around the place and like on grapplings. You obviously got to have good VR legs, but it's an absolute blast. So we had a tournament. It was great. I was in the lead. We were top of the board. Highest in damage, winning rounds, dominating our opponents, and what do you know? My internet connection craps out, and I was gone.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's Ireland for you, isn't it?
Poor guy.
And is this grapple tournament only on Steam right now, or is it even released yet?
It's only on Steam. It's due to drop in the Oculus store soon. The
Right.
developers are looking to bring it into the Quest.
If you look at the game, that game would work so well on Quest. I just know that Quest users would love that, and having wireless freedom playing that game is just almost a necessity for this for this title.
I'm confused. Is it called Grapple Tournament, or the game is Grapple VR and you had a tournament?
So first of all, I want to be clear about something, Zim. I didn't tell you about this game because I wanted to enjoy it for a little while before you came in and kicked my ass around the place, okay? Because while I'm an amazing sniper and I'm amazing at shooters, okay? Zim shows up in a game like Solaris and proceeds to whip out a mop, and he wipes the frickin' floor with everybody. So yeah, I didn't tell you about it. So it's called Grapple Tournament. You know what? They even have weapons in it that are kind of almost very similar mechanically to Unreal Tournament. So it really just has that great kind of just gels perfectly. And the primary method of kind of movement for the player is a grappling hook on their left arm. So you're shooting with one hand, you're grappling with your left hand. So you're not even grappling within your field of view. Sometimes I'm like, I throw my hand behind me and I grapple away while I'm blasting at somebody. And you change directions quickly with the grapple as well. So it's really fun. You're just throwing yourself around with it.
It sounds a bunch like there was an old Quake mod called Quake World, and it featured a grappling hook. And I think that was one of the first multiplayer, like fast-paced, games that. This is of course a flat game from 25 years ago or something now, but. My God, it does sound like my kind of thing. So I will. This is what Steam VR title? Is that where
Steam VR title? Yeah, Steam VR title. I'd say there'll probably be another kind of event soon. We'll get something going.
That's
you
good.
And me, I'll take you down this.
Sounds
time.
good.
It sounds like a mix of like like Unreal Tournament and like Winlands or something like that. Is that kind of what it feels like?
Oh
exactly.
Yeah.
And I can't describe it. Like it really feels like they nailed the art style for the game really well. It's kind of has a cell shaded feel to it, but you don't really notice the cell shadedness because there's enough detail to really make it all pop. And you just sort of get immersed in the whole thing. There's so much detail, but you don't, because you're moving so fast, you tend not to notice it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I really feel like it's such a perfect title for what it's doing. And I feel it's a great competitive title. So the interesting part about doing that event over the weekend was, you were seeing how it kind of worked in a competitive context with players, kind of out for, everyone out for themselves. But there was no spectate cam. So what they were doing is they were hopping between everyone's streams. kind of highlight what was going on. So I think it reminded me of the early days of competitive Onward, where we would like what you see right now, we would grab people's individual streams and overlay them in a single stream to kind of almost portray the story of a competitive match. And let me tell you, that was tricky.
And so is this like kind of stolen your heart at the moment? It's kind of like taking you away from other competitive games?
I mean, yes and no. So I mean, while I really enjoyed it, it's kind of like you could jump in and just fly around the place. I'm still very much committed to kicking ass in kind of more hardcore shooters like Onward. Like we've got so after this podcast, I'll be hopping into a custom map tournament with my boys Boss Fight. We're currently 3rd best in the world, you know, just a little thrown out there. Look, we're really the best, but we don't want to steal the spotlight too much. So so yeah, we were hopping into a custom map tournament in Onward, and what that involves is it's fan-made maps, kind of like, you know, you get them through the workshop in the game. It's cross-play with the Quest, and you know, we're trying out different maps to see what we want to bring into the competitive league season this year.
Nice. And maybe like for people that don't know who you are, that are in the stream and wondering, like, we've got a question like, which terrorist group does this guy belong to? Maybe we should explain who you are and what you do, Viper.
All right. Let's hold up a second. Are you suggesting people don't know who the F I am?
Some people don't, apparently, I'm surprised about it as well.
I know his terrorist group.
All right, okay. Let's not go there, Zim. That's whoa.
Yeah. I know. 2021 is a bit rough. I know.
Yeah. So I'm the Lonely Viper. I play first-person shooters mostly, and kind of screw around with other things. And I make YouTube videos and I stream. And I mean, I don't really know. It's hard to describe what I do because I just do it. You know, I never really thought about it too much. To be honest, I'm the man being propelled by the idea of me. Oh. I'm just amazing, and that's just propelling me through time and space. So I'm just going with the flow. I'm riding this wave of craziness.
But you've been integrated into like the competitive VR scene for like since its inception, pretty much.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. For forever. So to give you a bit of background, I started playing Onward the first day it came out. It was the first shooter in the virtual reality PC, you know, market at the time. So I was straight in on that because I loved it. I mean, even before that, there were kind of these like these you know, prototype shooters people are coming out with, and they were a blast. Onward was the first one to hit the market, and I immediately fell in love with it. It was the best experience I ever had. It was so immersive. Yeah, the closest thing I could liken it to was playing paintball. Only, you know, when you would slap someone in the back of the head in paintball, they would tend to physically assault you. Whereas in this, you could do whatever you want to people, and there's no consequences. So I mean, I was playing it one night. I was screwing around. You know, I had this close encounter with somebody where, you know, I walked into a room and I kind of thought he was in there. I wasn't sure, and he's staring right at me. I'm staring right at him. We're both trying to shoot each other, but you know, being so new to VR and shooters, we didn't know, so we're both click. Our guns were empty, and we're like, oh geez. So I'm fumbling, panicking on my gear. I'm just, oh Jesus, because I know I've got a knife. So I pull it out. I'm like, I'm stabbing this guy, like crying my eyes out. This because it was so visceral, so real, and I lost. So coming out, I just so happened to have a video shadow play, so I clipped it. And I was like, you know, I want to share this. I want to show some friends, and I was like, but at the same time, I don't want to put this on my personal YouTube channel because I don't ever want to be identified as a twit. So what I did was I made the Lonely Viper because at the time I was like, well, Viper's my gamer name and I'm so fucking lonely. So I made it, and it kind of went from there. I didn't even have a logo. It was just a channel I threw up, and I think someone shared the video on Reddit or something, and from there it got picked up by like the Daily Star or something with an article titled "Crazed Gamer Hacks Player to Death," and it's like,
just to sketch this for a moment, the guy that we have on the podcast right now almost single-handedly canceled the entire VR market because of that one video he made.
Yeah. Oh man, like Jesus, it was crazy. So I kind of just went from there and just got into things, and so the competitive VR, the Onward scene came about quite quickly. If you can imagine, there was a lot of people playing this game, and they started to realize, okay, well, it's a 5v5 or at the time 4v4 team-based tactical shooter. You know, why don't we prearrange the teams and play together? So what cropped up initially were these weekend tournaments, where like people would jump in and like they'd form teams, they'd sign up, and they'd be organized and played. I think at the time it was a guy called Incremental Death set it up, and it was kind of then myself and my buddy Radarhead started helping out and organizing that stuff, and then from there it kind of evolved into a league. So initially, I think Dakenman, the founder of VRL, had set up a night, something like a night league or something like that, which then merged with the weekend tournaments because they were taking hours into the VRML league. And so from there, we started having these seasons where, we would just pit teams against each other week on week, and that would culminate in this, big event at the end of it. And before we knew it, it kind of just grew legs. Oculus started knocking on our door, saying, hey, we want to, make VR esports a thing. Can we, put this on the big screen? Can we host it on Twitch? Can we make it a thing? And one thing led to another. But like I mentioned, in the early days of this, we were restreaming people's streams to cast these matches. It was only after the developers actually put in a proper spectate cam, it really opened up the potential for what this could do, and that's when Oculus really took notice.
Nice. Yeah. And I think what we're going to do is like later on in the show, we're going to sort of delve a little bit deeper into like the VR competitive scene and like where you think it is now and like how it's developed over the years and how things have changed. Because like you say, there was a lot of investment from Oculus for like VR esports, especially around events like Oculus Connect. But then we saw that kind of die off a little bit. So it'll be interesting to get your perspective on that. So we'll be talking more about that later. So that is the Lonely Viper. I kind of compare him to like the Dr. Disrespect of VR. If you want to go and check out his video, we've linked his YouTube channel in the description down below. But like the gameplay is just top notch and obviously really, really fun as well. So go and check out his videos there. So before we get into what I played this week, let's see what the chat have been up to. Have they got any good recommendations of stuff that they've been picking up this week?
Yeah, so I asked the question as well, and I saw like a couple of things popping up. We had Dark Angel 3. She said that she played The Usual Suspects, Puzzling Places, and a buttload of Solaris. And also Mr. Trinidad's played a lot of Solaris and also Population 1 this week. Then I noticed that Paradise Decay, he played Warplane on Quest 2 through side quest, and he said that it was a superb World War I dogfighting experience. So we had those kind of things are the ones that I saw popping up, but I see people are posting in now as well that they played Doom 3. So that's
nice.
The Quest version, I guess, that is being was modded to it, and then Warplane. I see that popping up again.
Nice, solid recommendations there. So my highlight of the week this week is, of course, Hitman 3. I've been playing it a lot in both Pancake and VR mode, but we're going to be talking about that in a bit more detail later on. I think both Zim and I have played it. Have you guys played Hitman 3 in VR yet?
Yeah, I had to leave my PlayStation behind in Belgium.
Oh yeah,
dude. What about you, Viper? You don't you're not a PSVR guy?
To be honest, being an actual Hitman, it's just boring. The concept is boring to me.
That's understandable. That's understandable.
No, I don't actually own PSVR, so it's kind of never been a thing for me. I've always been just disappointed when things get kind of announced for PSVR and never make it to PC.
Yeah, and I'm sure you probably have something to say about maybe some of the stuff we're going to be talking about anyway. But yeah, me and Zim will dive into that a little bit more later on in the show. But let's get into the news first. But before, of course, we get into the news, I want to thank the sponsor of this week's show, and that is, of course, SynthRiders. They've sponsored us again, and we're very, very grateful. And if you're not familiar with SynthRiders, it's a fun VR rhythm game from the fine folks over at Kluge Interactive. And SynthRiders stands apart from other VR music rhythm games as it encourages you to bust out some freestyle dance move and just kind of cut loose to the music. And you can do this solo, or you can ride the rails against other people online in their excellent online multiplayer mode. SynthRiders have just released their latest Synthwave Essentials Pack 2, which contains one of the best tracks yet, which is Algorithm from Muse. If you haven't tried it yet and you're a fan of SynthRiders, you've definitely got to put it on your wish list. It's a really standout track. They've really mixed up the style with that one. So go and check out SynthRiders, which is available now on Steam, Oculus Rift, and Oculus Quest. Links are in the description down below.
Yeah, I want to just make a comment about SynthRiders because having played again Beat Saber, I just think that Beat Games and obviously now Facebook, who own Beat Games, have missed such a trip on this. And if you're really looking for a game to play with friends, I can't recommend Beat Saber because multiplayer doesn't even have VoIP, and it's a real pain in the balls to go and set that up. But SynthRiders, you easily hop in and you're playing with strangers or friends if you want. And they've got a really nice kind of eclectic mix of sounds. They keep adding as well, which is great to see them thrive.
I'm still a big fan of the jazzy tunes, the jazzy funk that they have. It's such a unique kind of thing, and it works so well with the kind of way that you need to interact with those.
I forgot about
those
that.
rails, and also I like the different kind of movements that they have, because I tried the new pack as well. I wasn't the biggest fan of the although I like Muse. I don't think that the tracks really lend to it. For this particular thing, but I do like the other songs in the pack, like especially the remixes. I don't know why, but I always feel like with a remix, it's so much nicer to do, because they work with beats and they play around with beats, which makes it more interesting to play a game on it. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we might have some cool giveaway to announce next week. So make sure you stay tuned for that as well. So let's get into the news. First bit of news this week is some sad news, unfortunately, and that is about 2 Resident Evil games. Now, the first one, you may remember a few months ago, there was a few sort of rumors floating around that we might be getting a remake of Resident Evil 4 in VR. And this kind of information came from a supposed data breach at Capcom, which ultimately leaked online. And the rumors were kind of spelling out that it was going to be Resident Evil 4 remade in VR and would come to Oculus Quest around sort of April this year. Now, as a huge fan of Resident Evil, I was super excited about this news, and especially as Resident Evil 4 is like actually one of my favorites from the series. So you had that sort of in the bag that we were kind of looking forward to and hoping that was going to be a thing. And then on top of that, you also had Resident Evil 8, known as Resident Evil Village, which was announced as coming to all major gaming platforms this year. Now, as we know with Resident Evil 7, it had a VR mode, but it was exclusive to the PSVR, and that released way back in like 2017. And we hoped back then and in the subsequent years that we would eventually get a PC port of Resident Evil's VR mode, but sadly to this day that has never happened. So when we had the news of this Resident Evil 4 VR port and then obviously Resident Evil 8 coming, we kind of hoped that we were going to get 2 Resident Evil VR games potentially on the horizon. But roll on this week, Capcom had a Resident Evil showcase event on Thursday to kind of share their plans with the series going forward. And unfortunately, we didn't get any announcements about any of the VR support, and they didn't even mention VR at all, actually. Yeah. So it's kind of sad that at this point, it doesn't look like it's going to happen, I don't think. What do you guys think?
See, the thing is, I've been so head down this week that I thought they had made a statement because of all the feckin' news articles around. I thought they made a statement that VR wasn't coming. One thing that they did confirm, which I find really interesting and goes against this thought of, oh, maybe the VR surprise is coming later, is that they're first person. You know, a lot of the Resident Evil games through the entire chapter up to like Resident Evil 7, the majority of them have been third person. And then in this one, they make this, in this unveiling, they made this specific comment about how engaging they felt first person was. So if these guys have the feckin' gall to put it in first person and not go VR after how much a hit, Resident Evil 7 was, I'm going to walk. I can't imagine that this would not come to VR. So for me, although they haven't mentioned it in this showcase, I feel like they're keeping it as a punch point later, or maybe they've got it planned as a separate pipeline. I know you're going to douse my wishes here, but I just can't see it making sense any other way.
I think it's coming out in May, if I'm not mistaken. The game's launching in May, so I don't know. I think the issue around this is, and we'll probably delve more into this when we talk about Hitman 3 in VR as well, is that we know that Sony are kind of taking their foot off the gas when it comes to VR at the moment. Certainly around the launch of the PS5, we thought, months back that there might be a new headset announced, but then they came out and sort of, like you said, doused the sort of flames and said, look, we're not investing in VR in the near-term future. Yep. It's maybe like a year or maybe even 2 years away before we bring a second-gen PSVR headset to market. And we all kind of cried a little bit, got over it. But this is now looks like it's having an effect on some of the game launches because, like we're going to touch on with Hitman 3, you've got games launching on PS5, which obviously take advantage of the new hardware, but the PSVR doesn't take advantage of the new hardware. The way that most games implement VR, even on the PS5, is through like a backwards compatible mode. So they're basically running in like a PS4 mode, which isn't ideal. And yeah, I just don't think that as this game is going to be like a technical showcase for the PS5, although they're going to release it on PS4, I just don't think that they're going to invest
and I think
in the VR mode.
I think you're kind of right with that previous announcement, and this is the problem. Is I think they had, clearly from what I see in their trailer, I think they had VR planned, and I think at some stage last year, to keep it survivable, they pulled the plug, and we only heard about it 9 months later, and that's probably a COVID-19 survival strategy for the company.
You could be completely right.
And also because, like, I mean, I agree with you both on this, but if you consider the success that Resident Evil has just in general on all games, like, even though it was very successful in the VR, that's just a very small fraction of like what kind of revenue that they bring from like the general gaming market. So I mean, it wouldn't hurt them in any way if they would scrap the VR portion from getting enough sales. So I do think that that is not going to happen, and it's probably not because of them not wanting it, but it's just because of the focus from PlayStation shifting a bit away from VR.
Yeah, I agree. But VR aside, they did release a demo exclusive to the PS5 as a technical showcase for Resident Evil 8 called the Maiden demo. Oh. And obviously, being fortunate enough to have a PS5, I checked out the demo yesterday. Ooh. And I have to say, initially, I was super skeptical of like the whole kind of way they've going with the series. From the trailers, it's more set around like a castle with like vampires, and I was like, I'm not sure if I'm into this. I played the Maiden demo, and it completely like 180 changed my opinion on it. Like, the demo is excellent. It is so good. It's around 20 to 30 minutes long. Graphically, it's like a real, like, it is a technical showcase as to what's capable on PS5, which is really amazing. They've got this incredible sound design, really eerie and creepy vibe going on with this like kind of blood-sucking vampire lady with massive boobs. It was just totally awesome.
She's my favorite, by the way. I think
they perked up.
Yeah. Oh, you will. So yeah, I would say if you've got access to a PS5, I know like stock has been super limited, but definitely check out the Maiden demo, and I think you'd be like super interested in the new game after playing that demo.
Does that mean the demo is only so it's only playable on PS5? Is this game only going to be playable on PS5?
So the demo is only available right now on PS5, although they said it will be coming to PC later. So it will be releasing on PC as well. The full game will, along with Xbox, PlayStation,
Didn't they say that about
all the
Resident
others.
Evil 7 as well, that it will come later to PC?
Well, the VR mode?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. Like I remember us talking about it for years and like wanting it. But
your question, Rowdy, is your question instead at the launch of Resident Evil 7, didn't they say that it would come to PC later? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. I know we wanted it, but I don't remember them ever confirming it.
It's so funny. It's funny that this happens, but I mean, you get into these game series and you just kind of expect them to be on the platform that you want them to be on, but it isn't always the case. Sometimes they get stuck in a corner, and yeah, this one just it looked like I love the setting. As a Castlevania fan, like I love the setting.
Yeah,
the character design looks really good. And some of the environmental effects and the lighting, like when they show in the trailer, those lights like coming up from the floor, and I just want more Resident Evil. And they reinvent themselves. It's not the same tricks every time, and I like that, but it still has I don't know how they do it. It's maybe the colors, or I haven't figured it out yet, like what makes it Resident Evil, but it looks and tastes like a Resident Evil experience,
The light, it's the lighting. It's definitely something to do with the lighting, because everything just feels dirty. Like you just feel grubby afterwards. Yeah. And you make your way out into like the kind of castle area, and there's a big like glowing chandelier there, and it just looks phenomenal on the PS5. So yeah, I'm hyped for it, but of course very gutted the fact that we're not going to get it in VR, or it doesn't look like it at this point at least, and that this rumored Resident Evil 4 VR remake also might not happen, because this would have been the perfect opportunity to announce it and get some hype for it. So yeah, I think it's looking unlikely at this point, but of course if that changes, we'll be the first ones to let you know. Obviously we're big fans of the series.
Yeah.
So that is the first bit of news about Resident Evil. So now, kind of keeping on the PSVR sort of theme, let's talk about Hitman 3's VR mode. This is one of the sort of the big game launches of the sort of first sort of quarter of the year. Hitman is a well-established series. A lot of people are big fans of it. Wouldn't say I'm a massive fan of it. I think the last Hitman game I played was the original, and I didn't touch the second one. So jumping back into Hitman 3 was like my first foray into Hitman for a long, long time. But the VR mode, just like the original Resident Evil 7 game we were talking about earlier, is exclusive to PlayStation VR right now. And like Resident Evil 7, can only be played using the DualShock 4 gamepad and not the PS Move controllers, which are individually tracked motion controllers. This was a big concern for us when we first heard about this news. We talked about it on the show like a little while ago. But when we saw like the kind of VR trailer, it kind of gave us a little bit of hope, as the developers at IO Interactive had kind of integrated motion controls using the DualShock 4. So it's kind of got a light bar on the back of it that is, tracked. And then you could sort of make some movements with that, and kind of gave us a bit of hope that it would be better than we thought it might be. But let's get into the control scheme maybe straight away and get that out of the way, and then we can talk about some of the other stuff. So is there anything you want to say, or do you want to jump in first about the control scheme, Zim? Just purely the DualShock?
Just purely because that's the thing that sinks the game for me, yeah. Probably. I mean, I think, and this was something I said last week, and I didn't expect it to come and bite me in the ass, but it has. The fact that they've decided to go for DualShock, but not simple DualShock. It's like they're trying to VRify the DualShock controller and use it well. I'll tell you the problem I had. The problem that I had with it, with a room set up with my PlayStation camera about 6 feet away from me, and even the view from the PlayStation VR camera in clear sight of the controller and the light and all of that, the game has a very sensitive distance, I would say, between the DualShock controller and the headset. That's what I've noticed. So in an environment that I've played PSVR games, all manner of games that are DualShock tracked, aim controller tracked, all this kind of thing, it was popping up the sensitivity grid, which is in a lot of different PSVR titles, and normally is telling you you're outside the span of vision for the camera, so you need to step back in. This was something actually... Or needing to face it, right? In case you're not, in case you're not, let's say, accustomed to being a 180 degree player on PSVR, which I am. Yeah. I'm, Resident Evil, given we were talking about, Resident Evil 7 used to have this problem. I had my camera at that time monitor mounted. It wasn't quite far enough away from me. It wasn't quite far enough away. So the tracking volume was that bit more limited. And this is what immediately out of the box came to my attention. And for the hour and a half that I struggled with the game, it just you have this blue grid around you that fades a little bit in the immediate forefront of you, but I couldn't get that to go away without basically bringing a step stool into the room and standing up on that to get the controller up. If I was standing where I was, I had to hold the controller almost touching the headset for the grid to dissipate. And I tried even a few times having the controller above the headset, which actually worked. And then in the end, I was like, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna step. Someone came up with a bright idea. They're like, what about a chair or a step stool in your room just to heighten you up? And it worked. And it dropped it. It was just very uncomfortable. And I think this is something that, again, what I feel about Hitman. And we're going to talk about a lot of the pros because I have a lot of positive things to say about this game. I think it's turned out maybe a lot better than I was kind of cringe hoping that it might. And then there's a list of cons I have as well. So for me, the main problem is the control setup that I have, because I know it works with literally 30, 40, 50 other PSVR games perfectly. I'm like, I'm not going to start mucking with that and screw it up for everything else just for this game that can't quite get it right on launch day. Other people in my audience were saying they had the same problem. Some people have said that to rectify that problem, you try to get the camera as horizontally mounted with the controller, the DS4 controller, as possible.
Yep.
And it rectifies that problem, which is fine. That just means it's a kind of an angular sensitivity that the game has. But between that and I'd say a mixture of other features like the hint system in the game, which helps teach you how to work the game, it's more aggressive and annoying than the pop-ups that you had in like Medal of Honor, where your whole screen is taken up by something that interrupts the game, and then it does it again half a second later, and then 5 seconds later, and it's like it gets very interruptive. So it's very clearly a flat designed game with VR added to it. And I really look forward to talking now about the kind of pro side, because let's go there.
Yeah.
Let's go there. Let me fling it back to you, Mike, so people aren't just listening to me
I just wanted to
talk.
sort of touch on the controls a little bit because I didn't have so many problems with the grid. I have my sort of PS camera almost chest height, about like a meter or two away from me, and I didn't have the issues with it popping up all the time, although I did have issues where I would get so immersed, I would look behind me, in the heat of the moment, and then the grid pops up and says, you're not facing your camera properly, and then that kind of breaks the immersion, especially if you're in an intense battle or something. Although I did just find generally that using the DualShock 4 for this game just felt really janky, and it didn't feel like it was like the right tool for the job.
Correct.
And when you think about Hitman VR, you think about like garroting someone, creeping up behind them, getting the razor wire over their throat and like literally garroting them to death, which is pretty epic when it actually works. But unfortunately, it's so hit and miss with like the DS4 that you just wanted it to be with the motion controllers.
Dude, I ended up flossing an older gentleman. I mean, I flossed his teeth and he's like, would you please back up? And I'm like, I'm clearly trying to kill you. Would you please just die? But like, that's exactly, you hit it on its head. It really does feel like the control scheme is forced and it bugs you. And the problem is I can see through the muddy windscreen. I can see that there's a good game behind it. And I'm
100%.
sure flat gamers are going to love this. And they're going to be looking at the VR side and going, this must be amazing in VR. Even maybe I'll buy a PSVR for this. If you're in that boat, I would, at the moment, from my opinion only, and I'm only an hour and a half in, I can't recommend you go pick up a PSVR for this game.
I think that this touches on like something that we said last week. I mean, I haven't tried it, so I can't really give a solid opinion, and I don't think Viper has tried it either. But the thing is, and I see that GT Gamertech VR also said in the chat, like probably in early 2018, Hitman like this would have been awesome in VR, and I think everyone would have been completely amazed by it, but.
Yeah,
we're kind of like a bit further now, and not having a good implemented control scheme in a game that has VR support just feels lacking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Like
Absolutely.
we are spoiled by modern day VR systems that have all this like accurate tracking, inside out tracking, Steam VR tracking. Yeah. Independent motion controllers, and then when you go back, it does feel very dated.
Yeah.
It does.
Although I'm pretty sure if someone new comes to it and he just says like, "Oh, I just played this Hitman VR game and I heard this VR support," I'm pretty sure that if they put just a headset on their face and they can already look around, not even playing the game, will already be amazing. I'm 100% convinced of that.
Yeah.
But like playing VR, more VR games, you kind of like get used to that first sense of amazement.
Totally.
I'm just gonna go through a couple of things because I want to touch on a couple of points. Sure. First thing, the number one positive that this game has, in my opinion, is the visuals and the environments. Like the environments, like you get to Dubai, you get to various places, and it's gorgeous. Unfortunately, because of how PSVR capture goes, you can't really properly share that because it all looks like muddy mess. It looks way better in the headset, and I would say that, like, you look at that, and immediately my brain is just going, this needs to be on PCVR. They need to release this high fidelity with the texture system on a better headset, and you'd be in tears at some of these visuals. They are really, really pretty environments, and it feels to me like the bar, of course, has moved, like what Rowdy's saying, right? We've moved on. You need touch controller support. It just demands it for a game like this. I think, Mike, you touched on it last week where you said it feels like, when you think about a studio's budget, they just kind of shortchanged it and they decided, all right, move controller support. How many sales are we going to get? Is it worth it? And they just went return on investment, not worth it. I wish that someone who was responsible for the game's direction and not just from the money-making side could actually justify and push that and say, you're going to feel like Hitman because those environments make you feel like Hitman. When you're walking through the party and a lady makes eye contact with you and does the little like cute smile and stuff, that feels fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It's a really unfamiliar feeling for you, Zim, I imagine.
But it is. I think and that kind of attention to detail that's in a AAA title, you don't often get to love it. And that's why I went out on a limb and I was like, okay, I'll pick this up and I'll just run for it today because everything, Resident Evil 7, Blood and Truth. I mean, there's so many examples where PSVR have just delivered a title that for PCVR players, I'm going to tell you this, performs great. Like I can't remember a PlayStation VR title running at 30 frames a second.
Yeah,
you know what I
it
mean?
doesn't happen.
And
Yeah.
so if you can get a great game running great, then you're almost there. You're almost over the finish line just with that.
I totally agree with you there, but I think the problem is that some sacrifices have to be made to maintain that frame rate. And certainly in Hitman 3 in VR, like you get a lot of pop-in textures, even in the medium to sort of close range.
So that's very, very. So it's one of the first things I noticed when you turn your head and there's a whole swath of people that just disappear.
The crowd just disappears.
In
Yeah.
this kind of odd, like it's like great. There's a term for it, but it's this kind of gradient fade that happens to everyone in the audience, and you're like, oh, that's odd. Like, why did they do that? So fair enough, they had to make those sacrifices. I could have forgiven that if some of the other stuff didn't happen. Like, I really feel like Hitman 3 for me in VR, not just in VR, probably you feel it in the flat game as well. They've squeezed a lot into that menu, and it's become kind of confusing as a result. It feels like the climb menu times 4. So if anyone knows what the climb menu is, it's like all these picture placards with words on them. I think they had it in Phantom Covert Ops as well. Those games were good. This one feels like you're like kind of searching around for where you need to go. Like even loading a game. Loading a game is like, how do I find the place to load the game?
I did see you struggling.
For the segment is ridiculous. So like these are minor points, but
another thing I just want to mention about the control system is that, like, obviously some of the magic of being in VR, and obviously, you know, Viper will be a testament to this, is like that feeling of like manually reloading a weapon or like throwing something in VR. It's just super satisfying, and you feel so connected with like the experience that you're playing. Whereas in Hitman, a lot of this stuff is redundant to like a button press. So reloading your weapon is just a single button press on the controller. You know, throwing a weapon, an object is just like holding the trigger buttons. And aiming, you know, and it's just a missed opportunity there. But going back to like the graphics, I totally agree that there's some real standout moments there, and there is a lot of content there as well to play. You've got the whole Hitman 3 campaign, the whole Hitman 1 and 2 campaign can be played in VR as well if you own them, which is really great. But some of the controller issues I've had aside...
Can I pause you on that for a second, Mike? Because I just want to say, I'm trying to answer this question for myself, going through the PlayStation Store. So it cost me £55 for the game. To buy Hitman 1 or 2, there were 2 like season pass add-ons. One was like £32, one was like 26. Do you have any idea how that works? Like, how do you? It said you get access to both of the others or the locations that are in those other games. I was really confused. Do you know how that works?
So as long as you own them, as long as you buy the original games and you have them on your system, then they'll be carried over into Hitman 3 and they'll appear there as maps. It's a bit hit and miss on the Epic Store version, but obviously we're not really touching on that much because it doesn't support VR anyway. But that's how it works on PlayStation anyway. But one thing I really struggled with, like I said, controls aside, was some of like the interactions I had in game with like characters. So for example, there was one moment where I had a knife, and I just went up to a guy and was just like stabbing him in the chest, like moving the motion
like
controllers
Viper
forward
then,
and backwards. Yeah, and he was just standing there, like completely unfazed what I was doing because there was no like collision detection on his chest. Like the game wanted me to swing the controller left to right across his face or whatever, but I obviously didn't want to do that. So
it's just a total badass, maybe.
But so it's moments like that. You
I
just
had the same. And the same thing.
Shame.
Like there's a lot of party tables or places where there's glasses, and it's like here's a table of 6 glasses. You can pick this one up. Oh, and you can put poison in this one. And it's like it's definitely very, very much a flat game where they're like, oh, we're gonna sprinkle in little VR bits and pieces, but it doesn't feel like a cohesive package for a VR player.
The other problem is because I've been playing it on the flat side of things and then playing it in VR, like I've enjoyed it more actually the flat way because like you've got access to a mini map. You see Agents 47 instinct vision, which gives you like an idea of where your enemies are, and it's kind of like an X-ray mode. They don't get transferred over into the VR mode. So I've kind of found that I prefer to play the game in VR after I've played through the mission on the flat game first. So then I understand where I need to go, who I need to kill, what I've got access to, and then I can kind of like just kind of soak up the environments more. Because some of the environments, there's like a stately home in Dartmoor, looks like friggin' amazing in VR. Like standing in that kind of stately home looks amazing.
Mike has been the hitman the entire game, who's like completely lost at like where he needs to go, who he needs to kill, and who he needs to poison.
Mike is really into it. He's even got the haircut.
I have, I went all in. I even got the barcode. But,
oh yeah, that was cute. I was
but
gonna
Mike,
say,
you know you're meant to get it like on your neck, not in your lower back, right?
I thought it was like one of those like tramp stamps. You know?
Jeff Viper's here, just like dissing all of us. This is great. He's going to go rowdy next. So the things that were really good that I found. Another thing I want to say is the sound design. It feels like AAA sound design. If you have any tactile, any kind of bass shakers or whatever, really great support. The voices. The cutscenes are really fab as well. I mean, they are, again, AAA cutscenes. There's quite a lot of them at the start. I found you were going from like cutscene to cutscene. It's kind of like, when's the action going to start? But aside from that, one of the things that I haven't felt in VR for maybe 2 to 3 years is a sheer sense of vertigo. And in 1 or 2 places in the game so far, I literally felt like I was going to fall. Now, it might have been that I was standing on a stool at the time, but that might have contributed to the fact.
That might have been part of it, yeah.
But no, it surprised me in a few places where I wasn't expecting to be way up high. One of the things that really disappointed me in the same space was you're clambering on some pipes right up high above the clouds, and you can't fall off. Like there's no way to fall off. There's invisible walls, and what's the point? There's no, especially in VR, like. I don't know why they have it like that. And then when you do from interaction to interaction, in this case, you were going from pipe A to pipe B to ladder to through a door, like blacking out the player for every interaction. Like, I want to jump down a foot. Oh, black me out. And then, it's like teleport locomotion inserted into your smooth locomotion. And it bugged me quite a bit, along with all of the stuff that was like popping up to remind me of certain things that were just blanking my vision out. So with all of that together, the whole package feels, and I'll just repeat the metaphor I gave, it feels like there's a dirty windshield on a really nice car, and you can't see into it. You can't see the dash. You can't enjoy it because it's just covered in shite. And it's like, if you could just rub all that off and get to the inside, you'd have a great time, because the thing looks great, it sounds great, and actually strangling somebody in VR you feel like Hitman. It feels good. Even with the DS4, it feels good. Dragging bodies around feels good.
Question, what's your benchmark for this experience? Am I the only one who's wondering?
Watching your streams.
A little thing you probably don't know about me, right? And don't let this scare you, but I did used to shelve dead bodies in a morgue job. So I have actually dragged dead bodies
Viper.
around. Exit Viper. He just is like, I'm out of here. That's it.
But just to kind of echo what Zim said, I totally agree that, I think the game has like a ton of potential there, and I think it's just hindered by the PSVR control scheme that they've implemented and some of the interactions. I think if this game is eventually ported onto PC, given some love, you won't get those graphical issues. You'll be able to experience what it's like to be in those huge crowds and like kind of blending your way through them. Yeah. And with full motion controls, I think this would be like a really excellent game.
The gadgets are really, really smart as well. Like, I like the fact that you have a whole plethora of weapons. They encourage you to play in different play styles, that type of thing. I really appreciated that. And I thought that some of the distraction mechanics were good. Like you said, having equivalently like a teleport locomotion arch to kind of like throw a coin or whatever, it just doesn't feel like 2021, It feels like 2016, really.
You're totally right. And I think, like what Rowdy said earlier, had this game released this VR mode in 2018 or 2017, I think we would be looking at it in a different way.
I agree.
But now we've been spoiled with modern day VR systems. We kind of expect more, especially from such a big developer anyway.
Yeah. One more point I want to mention. This is probably a launch week issue. I had, so the game, to track your progress and for challenges that are in the game, for challenge tracking, like achievement tracking, you have to be in an online status.
Of course.
And I found that this was, I don't have this, I've not had this for years now with other games, but I think their servers are flooded or something, because
they are totally.
I'm getting online disconnect. So I had to play through like the tutorial VR mission 3 times, because I'd be two-thirds of the way through and it would just disconnect me and say, you lost the connection, blah, 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 blah. You can force yourself into an offline mode, but then all the challenges stuff isn't tracked.
You're absolutely right.
And that is, look, maybe expected for launch week for some big studios. But if you're sitting there going, ooh, I've got 55 pounds or whatever it is in US dollars, I think it's $60, and I want to splash into this game and do it this weekend, wait a week, right? Wait at least a week before you go do that. And for anyone who really thinks that the VR support, they want like Move controller support, I still think if the studio spends the time, if the game sells well enough, and they do this as a patch 2 or 3 months from now, I would go and repurchase the game. I have refunded this. I've requested a refund because I can't. I'm surprised. I almost never refund games, and I was really looking forward to this one, but I can't forgive those two major issues. The way the controller schema works right now with the camera problem that I was having, and then on the other side, all these interrupts. There's so many interrupts that just ruin your experience. So
I totally agree. Like, I just plan to play through it rest of the game on flat game because I'm actually really enjoying the flat game.
It looks badass. It looks really badass. Yeah.
And I will go back to it. If they bring it to PC with motion controls, or if they add motion controls to the PSVR version, I'll definitely revisit it. But it's just a shame because, like you said, there is a lot of potential there, but it's just hindered at the moment by poor control scheme.
Yeah.
Can I just comment on the problem I have with large developers bringing games that either were previously around onto VR later is they tend to screw up the whole motion controller interface. Like, I'm never really impressed with what they bring to the table at the end of the day, because like you guys mentioned previously, we are so far along compared to where we were that it's really just like they're coming to the party late. The indie developers have already done something amazing with it, and we're all just over it. We're all completely over it, and it's disappointing because you get the likes of Skyrim and Fallout, and you had such high hopes and expectations having played games like Pavlov and Onward about how you can interact and grab objects, and it's a complete letdown. But the thing is, and the saving grace of these things, and it depends on the developer's approach to it, but if you get a game like Skyrim where the developer kind of facilitates modding, what you have down the line a few years later is this absolutely remarkable experience with the Fallout Essential VR modded experience and stuff, like where you've got all these IK mods, you've got all the weapon interaction mods, you've got like throwable items now in Sky, like throwable like weapons in Sky,
so good,
all this sort of stuff. Yeah, Zim, you know what I'm talking about. Like,
absolutely.
So I really think like Hitman, while it sounds super promising, I think like you guys said, it's a little late. And on top of that, also I think the way they went about it was wrong. I think if you're going to bring a game like that to VR, you make it the controller experience, you make it almost like a platformer, and then you could throw in, if you want to put the effort in, some VR experiences to it, like a part where you have to do something is first person VR. Like, for example, you get the controller, it tracks the controller's a brick, you brick someone to death. Wouldn't that be great? That's how you do it. But I think just coming in and trying to do these weird control schemes without motion controls it's a waste of time. It's things like that is what's shelving the virtual reality experience for the mainstream, and the half-assed attempts.
Even just to add to your point there, Viper, I mean, there was this term that was bandied about early on about half-assed VR attempts, which they used to say poisoning the well. It was a bad thing, And I really think that when you take a AAA title and you drop it for VR like this is going to be someone's first-time VR experience, and they're going to have super high hopes. And they're going to say VR is shit, and they bugger off, and that's the main problem that I foresee. We have kind of the tolerance, let's say, for this kind of thing, and we know that that's not indicative of every other VR experience out there.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of gamers who will literally just play this on a buddy's machine, be like, "Oh, I wanted to really try that because I love Hitman," and then just walk away like confused and kind of disappointed at how convoluted that setup is, because it doesn't. If you compared the PSVR experience to playing, I'll say, anything on Quest, right? It's like, I feel like they've got 7 or 8 major design mechanics just not well implemented. And that contrast is so stark. So, yeah, thankfully, I think this won't be a game that will be sold for its VR merits. I think it is a game that is going to be sold as a flat game, and that's where they're going to make their money.
And it's a solid one, for sure.
Yeah.
So that is Hitman 3 VR. So now let's talk about the final bit of news this week, and that is about Apple, as we have some fresh rumors from Bloomberg about an upcoming Apple AR/VR headset. So first of all, disclaimer, please take this information with a pinch of salt, as this is just rumor at this time. But with that said, Bloomberg have been right in the past with leaks like this, and they were one of the first to leak the rumors about the second iteration of Quest months before the official announcement.
We get this rumor almost every year.
Yep, that's true.
We do get this rumor every year. We talk about it on the show every year. Yeah, this is the anniversary, so buckle up. So this is what the article from Bloomberg says, and I'll just read it out for you. Apple's first crack at headset is designed to be a pricey, niche precursor to a more ambitious augmented reality product that will take longer to develop, according to people with knowledge of the matter. It will display an all-encompassing 3D digital environment for gaming, watching video, and communicating. computing, and AR functionality will be limited. So kind of how we got the Quest 2 now. It's predominantly a VR headset, but it's got some kind of cool AR pass-through functionality as well. Apple has planned to launch the product as soon as 2022, going up against Facebook's Oculus, Sony's PSVr, and headsets from HTC. Apple is aiming to include some of its most advanced and powerful chips in the headset, along with displays that are a much higher resolution than those in current VR products. So that's kind of interesting. We're looking at like super high-end, really high-resolution headset here. We don't know the specs, of course, but that's what they're touting. It goes further to say that Apple isn't looking to create an iPhone-like hit for its first headset. Instead, the company is building a high-end niche product that will prepare outside developers and consumers for its eventual, more mainstream AR glasses. So this is kind of like first exposing the general public and developers to say, like, we're dipping our toes into this for the first time, but we've got something big on the horizon.
I'll tell you what I think this is, Mike. I really think this is Apple waking up to, Facebook is pushing in on our territory, and we need to stop them. I honestly think that this is, because this is not something that we had expected in previous years. The AR glasses, yes, but this AR tacked-on headset is a new thing.
Kind of concept, yeah.
Yeah, new concept. And I honestly think it's a stop block for them throwing their weight around and actually saying, guess what? We're gonna come out with a product, and it's not gonna be $300. This is probably gonna cost a couple grand or something, but it's gonna be amazing, So
it's gonna be like epic.
The thing that I always wonder about this, like I don't worry at all about like that. It's gonna be a technological marvelous kind of thing, and it's going to be an amazing kind of resolution, experience, and all of that. But Apple is not really known for being a gaming company. Like, who is this aimed for? Like, who's going to play? What are we going to play on this? Like,
I don't know.
That's like Brady said. Like, Apple aren't producing gaming like machines or machines that can really do any kind of semblance of gaming. So what are they going to produce that's going to be of any interest to the VR gaming industry?
But I would probably say there's probably more gamers on the iOS platform playing casual games.
Candy Crush.
Well, exactly, more than probably any like console gamers. So they do have like a big share in the gaming market, even though it is very casual gaming. And they've got like Apple TV, and they've got like a monthly subscription service now through Apple TV. You can play like regular games that they release for free. So they are kind of tapped into it. But I think you're right, Zim, that this is their kind of like moment to say, okay, we're going to do something, and we want part of this pie as well. And to be honest, I think it's great, and I really hope that this happens.
Glad.
Obviously, I have some concerns, but I'll get into that in a little bit later on. So from what they've said in Bloomberg, the headset is designed to work as a standalone device, meaning it can operate on a battery rather than being plugged into a PC or Mac. Prototypes of the headset, some of which are about the size of an Oculus Quest, include external cameras to enable some AR features, so a bit like the Quest can. This is kind of interesting, to address consumers with poorer eyesight, it developed a system where custom prescription lenses can be inserted into the headset over the VR screens. So I kind of envisage this a bit similar to the way that you've got like companies like Widmo that make prescription lens inserts that clip over the lenses of the Quest.
Yep.
Maybe they're going to produce their own in-house, which is kind of an interesting take on that.
I don't know. It sounds like a rather cumbersome kind of thing to do to play games when it's sitting on the toilet,
I don't know if you know this or not, but I mean, 90% of the YouTube videos I watch are on the toilet. I'm pretty sure that's what all my audience is doing too.
And I thank you for that.
I think this is why they said limited AR experience, because they don't want to see none of that. So, that's...
Hey, look, I can watch Virtual Reality Oasis and crap at the same time, and watch my crap flush too.
So
amazing.
The thing is with this headset, I mean, Rowdy raises a point which is really important, and I wonder, like, from a software development perspective, you have like the AR kit that's been out there for several years now, and a whole bunch of stuff that's there. But this headset sounds like it's standalone, equivalently VR, with a little smattering of AR, which tells me that none of what's been developed for really their mobile and iPad market will just easily move from one to the other. So it does beg this question of, does Apple have an in-house studio, several studios? Are they working with developers already? You'd think that this would be a very closely guarded secret, and that might be difficult. But first-party content for this kind of application, I mean, what are they planning for us to do with it? That's my question. Well, like, movie watching would be my first one, would be they're expecting people to have an incredible experience that's better than the TV that's sitting on their table today. So they're like, don't buy a new TV, buy one of these headsets. And that works great for everyone who doesn't have
Yeah,
people
of
living
course.
with them.
It will have all the traditional Apple stuff integrated into it, like Apple TV, for example. It will likely have that integrated into it. But you asked about content, and that's kind of an interesting topic. Although we don't know about game developers, Apple recently did acquire a company called NextVR, and I don't know if you remember those guys, but they kind of produced and recorded events such as concerts and sporting events, they you were able to watch in VR, like you're courtside at a basketball game, for example.
NBA game. Yeah, isn't that the one where it was like pretty much restricted to the US in terms of their use?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was. So that's maybe like the kind of content they're aiming for, like super high-end visual content, like watching media. But then I wouldn't be surprised if they have some gaming on the side and they've kind of like got in contact with a few maybe VR devs and said, look, we want your game on our system. But who knows at this point?
Could it be that they're far more aimed at like, the business side of using virtual reality?
Could be.
Like, I don't mean as like a business headset, like due to like, like, I don't know, car construction or something like that. But for like someone who's working in like a business environment to make like more applications directly for that.
I don't know.
Go into their graphic design roots with the
maybe,
Macs.
but then maybe it might be like on a pro range, like they have the kind of pro range, don't they? But for me, it kind of sparks as like a really niche high-end consumer product, a bit like their brand new headphones, like the AirPods Max. They're super niche. They're like £600 headphones.
They're all aimed at like people that have like the Apple ecosystem, and still that ecosystem.
Yeah, of course.
Is built around like a business developer and being integrated like that. But I'm just wondering, like, have they specifically said that this is going to be a gaming device?
No. They haven't said anything. Well, they haven't said anything. This is all like leaked information, but the leak doesn't suggest it's going to be like a predominantly gaming headset either. But they do say that, they say it's got a code name, which is N301. It's in late prototype stage, apparently. But they say that these plans could change, or they could just be entirely scrapped. Who knows? But it is, like I said earlier on, a precursor to what they want to become mainstream, and that is their AR glasses, which they want to release. But they think that AR is far harder to sell right now than what VR is, because VR is like an emerging market. A lot more people are aware of VR right now than they ever have been before. So maybe it is a good opportunity for them to say, look, we're getting into the VR market. Oh, and by the way, we're going to have this like cheaper, more affordable mainstream consumer device coming in like the next couple of years that's going to be more accessible, more usable for people. But this is going to be the kind of niche entry to market for it. No doubt it's going to be super expensive. I wouldn't expect it to be like any less than like $1,000 when it releases. But I think having some competition, at least in the standalone VR market space, is a good thing.
Oh yeah, especially from such a large studio. I'm really excited by this. Like, I've had a lot of positivity behind Apple. I've been wanting Apple to pop anything on the market for the last 4 years. So the fact that we're hearing, news again of them potentially coming, but this is the first time I've seen that news take any kind of form. N301 is an interesting code name. To me, that would be N of some kind of product, combination. 3 being the quarter in which they intend to release an 01 for 2021. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it comes out. But
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
I'd buy one.
Yeah,
I'd buy one.
Okay. If this existed, what would the price be? Because
it's going to be like $1,000. It's going to be like $1,200.
I'm guessing
easy.
$8 to $1,000. It's either going to be completely standalone, or I'm trying to think, could they arrange some sort of partnership with Steam VR? I don't think so.
So unlikely.
Because they want their own ecosystem. So if they want their own ecosystem, will they have it work with the PC? And then I'm thinking to myself, no, because it doesn't really. They're not going to pull you into their iMacs, their whole, again, their Apple ecosystem by having you start off using their hardware on your PC. So. Yeah, I think they're probably going to bypass the
I really think that they're far more going to aim on a business perspective, on like the business users and making a business interface, and to bring like your work environment more into like that kind of ecosystem, because that would be in line with the strategy that they've been going. I don't think that Apple is all of a sudden going to start making games or start hiring gaming studios to make.
So do you mean, Rowdy, like a combination between like you've got your I don't even know what they're called these days, but like a MacBook Air, like a laptop in the Mac world, right? But instead of maybe you're running that in the side and you're actually displaying it in your headset or something like that, so that you've got the portability and accessibility to your work environment. I mean, it's not an area that's been tapped. And to be honest, they do make a lot of money in that space. But like I think it was like what you were saying from a gamer perspective, like going at gaming consumers doesn't seem to be right. So you got to think about like television, music, arcade games, right, and possibly business applications for this thing. I think unless they're going to go into a different direction, entertainment seems to be the obvious option here.
They'll just be selling the idea, the concept of you can wear this headset, you can wear it anywhere in the house. You'll have like the highest fidelity, like it's like having a 4K TV, but you don't need a 4K TV. You just strap it to your face and you've got this amazing built-in audio. It's going to be super high end. So that's going to be the niche market they aim it for. But I think gaming without doubt will be a part of it.
I think the price on this thing has got to be either $14.99 and up. I think it cannot be cheaper than $1,500 for what they're trying to aim for.
They were saying their projections for sales, because they know it's super niche.
Yeah.
They said that they'll probably sell one per store per week, and they've got like 500 stores worldwide.
My God.
So that's their kind of projections. They know it's going to be on a smaller scale.
So Bloomberg had that in their data as well? Or is that just
said?
Wow?
Yeah, that's what Bloomberg said. Yeah, but yeah, it'll be interesting nevertheless. Like I say, I hope it's true, and we'll just have to track this one and see what happens. But we'll probably be talking about this again next year when it still hasn't surfaced.
Stand of like $1,000 probably.
Yeah, exactly. It's exciting nevertheless, though. So now let's get into having a bit of a chat with our friend, the Lonely Viper, about the VR competitive scene. As like I said at the beginning of the show, he's someone that's been kind of like integrated with the competitive community for like since VR competitive scene was incepted pretty much. You've been a big fan of playing games like Onward, Pavlov, Population 1, and we've also had like previous insights into sort of like the VR competitive gaming scene when we had Alex, who was a caster from the VRML on the show a while back. So it'd be interesting to get your perspective as a hardcore player.
Yeah.
So maybe you can tell us like a bit, like you said, you started back in the day when Onward first sort of released, and you've sort of seen this kind of like growth in the VR sort of competitive scene. Did that sort of growth continue over the years, or has it kind of plateaued at some point, or now is it even growing even further with the new Quest community, or what is it you're sort of seeing from your perspective?
Yeah, so I joined on the moderation to like running VRML for a while with Dakiman. I was kind of very instrumental in its early growth stages, so I was kind of using my own kind of like platform at the time to try and push it and drive it a bit. So because I'm a big believer in VR esports. I mean, when I started playing Onward competitive, I was like, man, imagine a world where we get to a point technologically that you don't need a PC anymore. You just put on a headset, you can go out into a field with your buddies, or you can go out into like an arena with some wooden kind of like plywood walls and stuff like that, and just fight each other, kind of like CQB, that sort of stuff. Like imagine a world where you could do that. Now imagine a world where you take a camera and you're looking at that, and you use something to composite mixed reality, because mixed reality was one of the first, like when we saw the Vive trailers, mixed reality was already a thing, so it wasn't a big leap to think of that at the time. So I mean, I'm looking at that, I'm seeing, man, this is huge potential. You could have stadiums filled with people packed to the brim watching people play these games with augmented reality, also physically being there, and that would be just sick. I mean, you already have it. I was at IEM Katowice back in, I think it was 17, and just packed to the brim with people who just wanted to watch these players, gaming. They're sitting on their computers, they're just playing Counter-Strike, and on the screen there's crazy action, there's explosions, there's gunshots, there's flick shots. It's amazing, and I was like, VR is the future of this. We take these players and we make them physical athletes. We create a physical environment for them to have to do combat in. We overlay the virtual experience on top of that. We create an event and a show that will just captivate audiences in a way more visceral way than ever before. And I think that would just blow people's minds, So that's what originally my dream for it was, and I sort of was why I was such a big believer in it. So I got into VRML, I was helping drive for a long time. I had to step out eventually because obviously, running that, doing my own stuff, I didn't have the time commitments, and also there was a conflict of interest to play competitively and run it. So when Oculus started getting involved and there was money involved, obviously I had to take a step back. So I was really a big believer in that. So now you asked me about kind of its growth over the years. It was a fairly steady growth, and then eventually VR kind of plateaued somewhere around the Vive Pro generation before Quest. VR, you could see PSVr like competitive just kind of going, it's kind of just wiggling around a bit, nothing nothing too interesting happening. Things were kind of chill for a bit. Then Quest came along, and obviously, things exploded again. All of a sudden, you have this whole new market of players who want to get in on the ground floor of like all these exciting things. And again, Quest was the next sort of piece of the ingredient in my mind that I was visualizing this sort of, again, physical esports athletic arena environment. It's just, again, it looks like it's all kind of coming together, and I think it's only a matter of time before we find that we get that formula right. So yeah, it plateaued for a while. It had some good growth, plateaued, and then Quest, it just exploded again. And there's so many different games now which offer competitive experiences too, and it's just amazing, and I love it. I don't know if you guys have tried any competitive games or experiences yet.
Only with you, only like when you're carrying me in Population 1. But like, I think you're totally right, because I remember going to like Oculus Connect 4, Oculus Connect 5, and VR esports was such a big thing at those two events. And they had, was it the VRML back then when they had them on stage there with the podiums, and they were playing Onward and also Echo Arena? Yeah. Because those guys, they looked like rock stars. They made it look really cool. They obviously had the budget to invest in some really cool tech, and they had this amazing stage with lighting and huge big screens in the background, so you could see their first-person view, and they had shoutcasters.
Well. A huge cop, you had showcasters, and they know how to throw a party as well.
They know how to throw a party. And we saw that for like 2 years in a row, and I was like, holy shit, like this is amazing. And like you said, it was so visceral to watch. And like you say, when you see traditional competitive gaming scenes, it's guys behind a keyboard and mouse, which, when you're watching them, isn't particularly that exciting other than the dynamic within their teams. But when you see these guys, and they are like physically athletes, they have to be physically athletes as well, and they're moving around, and they're moving in such dynamic ways so they can get the advantage in this like VR game. You think like, this is so amazing and so like fun to watch, and then we're like, it's convinced this is going to be the future, and then all of a sudden it was like nothing. Yeah.
So what happened there? Okay, so unfortunately you got the inside scoop because I was behind the scenes. So pretty early on I realized, okay, I have my team, my good friends, Boss Fight, like I love those guys, they're my boys. I realized to myself, like, look, we can get a maximum, like Oculus will bring a maximum number of players, right? So my best bet is to probably get in there some other way, and like we can create another slot in the team, get another guy over, so we can all get together on a big kind of trip. So that was my main agenda. I didn't mind that much. So I started doing camera work. So I was in the background doing all the fly cams and stuff for the competitive matches. So that was kind of my ticket in there. And then I was also there as a content creator as well. And then me and my boys from Boss Fight would be over, and they'd be actually competing. Obviously they wouldn't do great without me, but hey, look, that's another issue. So I can tell you right now, being in the background, there are significant technical issues with Gen 1 technology and trying to create a whole production like that. Because first of all, they would only let you use Oculus CV1 for obvious reasons. I guess I completely understand. Oculus CV1's only, so you had to have lighthouse sensors, extra USB cards in all the machines. And I know you guys, of course, would know, Oculus CV1s could be so finicky with USB controllers and stuff like that. So there was a whole host of issues there. The players themselves had to be satisfied with the whole setup. So they had to be happy that the tracking was good enough for them to play competitively. And that's fair enough. I mean, you wouldn't expect a pro CSGO player to sit down and keys weren't working on his keyboard. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was a big part of it too. There were also technical challenges with the game and the networking. So there were different things would happen, like the game might bug out, they'd have to reset or something like that. Because obviously we're still in the very early days of kind of figuring out VR games because all the IK calculations and things that have to happen. So there was a couple of things going on like that. And then the other side of it was the company at the time, I'm not naming names, but the company running that show at the time weren't really great at doing it, especially with the VR setup. They were kind of weren't very experienced running a virtual reality competitive event, and you would think there isn't much of a difference and you'd be forgiven for doing so. Because to be fair, I don't think I would have known the difference until I went on the floor and saw the amount of hardware required to get it going. And not only just hardware, space. Okay, you can run a 5v5 competitive event for CSGO probably like, in the room I'm doing right now, just tables, chairs, that's it, you're done. But
Looks kind of spacious, actually, the room you're in right now. Is that a
yeah,
fairy
you should check
castle
out
in the
the
background?
pool.
Yeah.
That's my fairy castle villa. Let me tell you, it's quite the view. But you could run a physical, but to run a physical VR event like that, you need like a couple of meters for each player, and you gotta have room for the sensors and all that sort of stuff. It's crazy. So there was a huge amount of challenges and issues with that. So one year was particularly bad. There was a lot of technical difficulties, and I just think Facebook were just unhappy with it after that, and they went, "We're out. Let's can it for a while. We'll come back when technology sort of figures this shit out." The thing now is, I'm not sure with the Oculus Quest 2 how good, or how, like, with that inside-out tracking, how effective or useful that can be in that environment. I don't know how well it would work on a dark stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, I do see it as sorry, Mike. At the same time, I do see it as the next step. Like, I think, again, I had this vision at Oculus Connect 6, the last physical event we had, that there was so much room. You could easily set up like a fairly large play space, just like they did with the Quest 2 at the time. And you could have a competitive event like that, and you could use mixed reality to composite that, and you could use physical walls to, create the environment.
Totally, because that's what they did at Oculus Connect 5, wasn't it? They had the Quest was fairly new at the time, the original Quest, and they had this kind of dead and buried arena experience where it was 4v4, I believe, off the top of my head, and you all wore quests, and they had physical objects in the arena, and you had like a train line in VR that separated the two sides, and you just fought it out to the death between the two sides, and it was like one of the best VR experiences we've ever had. And we've been talking about local multiplayer ever since. Like, when is it going to happen? When we're going to see it? And obviously, I think COVID has put like a bit of a break on that at the moment. But I think you're totally right. They had this kind of like mixed reality capture system with like an iPad Pro that they could see all the players represented in VR and, the arena itself. And it looked great. And I was hoping to see more of that, like you said, at the last physical event, which was OC6. And they had the space to do it, but they just didn't do it. Even if they used the same demo again, it would have been standout for people that didn't try it the first time. But it seems that they didn't. But like you say, we have seen more of, more competitive VR titles released, particularly on Quest. We've now got like Onward on Quest. Population 1 just like blew up, which was amazing. Echo Arena on Quest, and we're seeing like this whole new player base. But like you say, capturing that like on a like a professional scale is very, very hard. As a content creator that creates VR content from the Quest, it's very hard to stream that content and to capture that from the headset. And when you have like 8 other people that are doing that simultaneously in the same physical space, you're going to get into problems. So that is a problem they're going to have to solve in the long term.
Well, I think the immediate solution, right, is we get that similar setup from OC5, and so Oculus, they set that up. They get the shared telemetry on the Quest again, okay? So it means they got to work closely with the developer. Let's say Downpour and Onward, right? They get on board Downpour and Onward. They share telemetry to get the players in the same environment on the same network. Physically sending data to each other, so they can calculate those physical locations. So we're getting low latency engagements, and then we partner with Live, and we get Live to set up the mixed reality, whole setup. So and then if you want to spectate from the first person point of view, you can use the spectate cameras on the server side to jump into the player's POV. So that way you actually don't need to pull video out of the Quest itself. So you've solved a lot of these problems already with the technology we have. We just need someone with the cojones to make it happen.
Yeah.
And not only that, just to touch really quickly on the local multiplayer, I don't know if you remember, but I saw someone mentioning in the chat as well, they had those iPads set up where you could like look through, and you could actually, there was like a form of augmented reality where you could like see like the game actually being played in front of you, which is amazing, because if you bring that kind of technology to like indeed like VR esports, you could actually have like cameraman running on the field like trying to capture like the best kind of footage. It would be amazing.
Oh, listen, I think you nailed it on the head. Imagine you have an AR app that you can download on your phone. You go to one of these live events and you stick on your app and you're sitting there, the phone from you're watching this in the arena. You're watching people duking it out. I think that would be amazing. Like, I think that is where it's at. Someone should pay me for these ideas, but that's another problem. But just to go back again to the concept of virtual reality esports, I don't think people appreciate when they watch these casts of the physical athleticism of the people doing it. So like, if you see someone lying down on the ground, shooting their gun, and then to get up off the ground quickly, I mean, that is a physical feat. It is taxing on the human body to be constantly jumping around the play space like this. And the players have to have a certain level of stamina to be able to compete at that level. I'm not talking like, 100-meter sprinter, Olympic sprinter, stamina, but a fair bit of stamina at the same time. And there's a mental kind of stamina you need too, because you're constantly with a pancake game, okay, you're focused, you're sitting here like this, and you are trying to map the three-dimensional world out in your mind, so you got your situational awareness. But when you're in virtual reality, you're mapping out the three dimensions. I can't even describe it. It's like it's more in real time. You're also conscious of your own body's positioning, and you're thinking about your own kind of where your legs are, what you're doing, stuff like that. You're thinking about how fast you can get from A to B if condition C is met, that kind of thing. And you're also thinking about your teammates, where they are, and all the sort of stuff. And then you're also using hand signals to each other. So for example, if I'm going to breach into a building, okay, so we would do what we call drills. So for example, I don't know if you guys watch Controlled Pairs Gaming, like he would go through a lot of this stuff, but we would go for a team breach a building. So it'd be a two-man squad breaching a building. Your man one is gonna position one's gonna hold security on a long angle looking into the building. Position two is gonna move up underneath him low, so he's not in his field of fire for his weapon. He's gonna get a flashbang, prep around the corner, flash in, flash goes off. Guy one's forward, guy two is immediate right, and you're clearing at the building and stuff like that. But that is, again, it's a physical thing. You're shifting your body weight quickly. Granted, maybe you're moving a bit in your play space too, depending on the situation and if you've got the room.
And I think a lot of people underestimate like the amount of training that goes into especially when you play games like Onward. Of course, with Onward you still have a team, but in the chat we actually have someone who has outdone you, Viper. We have actually a world champion in the chat as well. Sadly, it's Bradley.
I listen. Let's be clear about something.
Okay.
I'm the real deal. Okay. I was the 2001 Halo Heavy Weapons Rockets world champion. Okay, so I'm the real deal. Okay.
I got a question. I've always had this thought that one day, as a dude who was and still is the slender nerd build that I am, I wondered if someone would one day get ripped from VR. I'm curious, with all your time in VR, have you seen anyone transform from being a scrawny fella to someone who's like got decent muscle tone because of all their competitive gameplay? Have you run across that yet?
Well, I mean, not necessarily in a shooter, but I mean, there's Beat Saber guys who do it competitively, and they are shredded. Like, they've gotten insanely ripped. Like, I mean, let me think of one. I got a few friends of mine, like, they've just lost, like, so much weight. Yeah. Like, they look in incredible shape. But I mean, you could get that in VR. Like, hold that thought for a sec, right?
He's gone to his castle.
All right, okay, so this is my weapon stock. The green screen doesn't hate it for some reason. I don't know, these Zoom green screens are terrible. So this is my weapon stock. When I'm aiming my rifle, I'm using this when I'm sniping. Now, normally I'm freehand because, you get more, kind of freedom. You can throw your weapon around more easily. When I'm sniping, it's worth my while to train my body to be able to hold my arms up like this for long periods of time. So doing strength training is actually something that you should probably do if you're playing competitively. So you can raise your arms faster, and training with weights is also something you can do as well. Sometimes I'll strap weights to my wrist so I'll play against bots just to practice my my ADS and get that faster. Things like that. That's going so far beyond your traditional like your mouse flick. It's not even funny. Like,
yeah.
So you got great, like a player like Shroud, for example. I played with him a few years ago. He got VR one Christmas, and it was a privilege. Don't get me wrong. He had a lot of fun in virtual reality, but his skills on a mouse and keyboard did not translate.
Yep.
So while his mental game, like again, his map awareness and situational awareness, his interpretation of the information coming in and the way he would play was excellent, he wasn't able to snipe like he normally would. He wouldn't be able to acquire a target as quickly because he wouldn't have the physical kind of muscle memory the way he would with a sniper. And he got pretty pissed off when he saw that some of us use like rifle stocks, because he's like, well, that's cheating. And that actually poses a very interesting question. Is that cheating? Where do you draw the line? For example, you play a competitive shooter. You snap turn. That means you can turn faster than at the speed of light, faster than any human could. Is that cheating?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions being thrown out there, and distinct from your traditional pancake competitive games, a lot of these questions have had to be kind of figured out by VRML as they kind of go on as to how they figure out what's fair game and what's not.
And it's funny, I remember having this conversation with a couple of like the competitive guys at OC5, I think, And I was saying, because I think around then, the Pimax was kind of a big hot topic, with the wider field of view. And I was like, would that put you at a significant advantage in like a competitive game because you've got a wider field of view? Can you see more in your peripheral vision? Is it because it's got higher resolution display? Is it because it's got higher refresh rate now? Is that more important? So there's a lot of different factors involved. But talking about accessories, I've got a kind of a question to put to you, because obviously you showed there that you use the Pro Tube for like sniping. How do competitive players feel about like omnidirectional treadmills? Because the kind of vision back in the day of like competitive players, on the stage, is that they would all be on these like kind of treadmills and running about. But obviously that never really happened. But what does the competitive scene think about these as legit accessories?
I mean, with smooth, the smooth kind of running locomotion everyone's using at the moment in the likes of Armored, no one's really that bothered about a treadmill. I mean, when I think of a treadmill, I like the concept, but then I'm like, wait a minute, how do I go prone? How do I hit the deck? You know what I mean? So immediately, if you're going to use a treadmill, I think in the vast majority of cases, barring some, very sophisticated, arm-based rig, you're going to have to limit the amount of movement and what kind of movements a player can do. And that may be a good thing for certain kinds of games. Like, I mean, Pavlov, you can't prone in. Population 1, you can't prone in. And that's fine. Those games are going for a certain kind of experience and it works. But I think for the hardcore competitive scene that I play in with Armored, I don't think anyone would be particularly bothered about it. I don't think anybody generally seems to think that it's necessary at all, really. I mean, Cyber Shoes offers a very interesting kind of halfway house experience between what you traditionally use to move around the game and one of these treadmill experiences. And to be honest, I didn't feel like it was necessary as an accessory to the virtual reality experience. It didn't increase my immersion in that sense. You know what I mean? It was fun, but it didn't really make me feel like, oh, this is superior to just using my play space.
Fair enough.
Chat was coming up with an interesting question here, Viper, and I wonder if you've come across this in terms of the leagues that have been running the competitive scene so far. What about, substances used to enhance players? I mean, someone could take some, coffee pills, someone could take something else to help enhance their gameplay at the moment. Are there any rules when it comes to esports in terms of your interaction that, restrict substance use?
Let me think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Short answer is no. Although, if I recall correctly, when we played with ESL, I think ESL had terms in their contracts about like the use of amphetamines and kind of different like Ritalin and stuff like that to improve your performance stuff. But I mean, as far as I know, in esports, I've heard only rumors and conjecture that people do use these kind of things, and there's not really much you can do about it, really.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's a kind of like an unpoliced thing at the moment.
How do you enforce it, right? I mean, show up at the house, give me a blood sample, like.
Exactly. I mean, like I don't know. Have you guys seen Auntie Donna on Netflix? Just out of curiosity.
No.
Absolutely brilliant series, but they did a skit on kind of like someone coming in to test your urine samples or stuff, like just coming to your house. But I mean, it's conceivable that could happen. But to be honest, how could you possibly police a disparate demographic of players scattered all around the globe, for drugs? It's not possible. The best thing you possibly have is a policy saying we don't condone the use of copious amounts of cocaine before your matches. I'm just like, shut up.
So one question that I'm sure people want to know in the chat as well, like this outfit that you wear is something that you do wear at events, like when you're at events and stuff, you wear this out in public. And probably people want to know, and certain I do as well, what's the reason behind it? Like, what's the reason behind, not being open about your, like, true identity, as it were?
Oh, let's see. I guess the simplest answer is I'm just a private guy, and it's way easier for someone to take you out if they know who you are and what your weaknesses are. So if nobody knows who I am and what my weaknesses are, then I win.
You're invulnerable. Yeah,
I love it. The thing is, like, I mean, I just want to ask another question. Like, so I won't ask you about like laundering cycle or stuff like that. But do you have at least a backup to your garb? Like, do you have a backup suit, or is it just the one?
Yep, I have a couple of variants as well. Hold on. So we've got the classic gray.
This is so not
we've
gonna
got
work.
classic red, and we've got another red backup just in case. We also have a B-haptic suit, and we have a fanny pack for all the accessories.
I love that it's got little Viper on it. That's hilarious.
So yeah, there's no shortage of goodies. But I have a couple of suits, because depending on how busy the schedule might be, I might need to swap out. Also, blood, that's really hard to get out, so you've got to put that straight in the wash and put on a fresh one.
True. So just sort of round this sort of segment up then, what's sort of popping off in the competitive scene right now in VR? Like what would you say is like, I know you mentioned Grapple Tournament is something that you think is like an interesting upcoming title, but anything else you think is like really popping off that people like should be looking into right now?
I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say Pop 1 is really really exploded this season. I mean, I myself, when it launched, put about 60 hours into it before I became immensely bored. But I mean, a lot of people are still into it and still into the kind of the dopamine cycle that it creates with its, kind of like, drip feeding hits. In terms of its competitive potential, I think it's there. I see VR Respawn doing stuff with it, and there's a lot of potential there. In general, though, what I see is, with Battle Royale games is that random number kind of generator element doesn't really lend itself to competitive experiences much. Plus, I don't think I don't think the devs have really invested in a proper casting camera yet. Like it just doesn't seem to be there. So I mean, I think it's got potential, and I think it'd be really awesome if it happens. But it's not there yet.
Can I ask
they're busy making skins.
On the back of that, with the casting camera, this seems to be, from the outsider's perspective, something that you'd think if developers want their game to take off in the esports scene, that this is like the most obvious thing that they need. And when anyone pipes up about it, when anyone pipes up about it, this seems to be like, this is the one thing we need. If you're going to give us something, give us this. But I still see games come out that seem to be targeting esports that launch with no camera. So I don't understand. Do you have any insight into why they make the decision not to implement that? Is it really that difficult?
I don't know if it's difficult, but every time I talk to a developer about this issue, it just always seems like it's like, we were just trying to get the game to work first. They don't build it from the ground up around esports, even though they seem to have that in mind. And I don't even necessarily think esports is something worth building your game around, especially when you're already looking at a niche market. I don't think it's good to target your game towards a niche within a niche. I think the best thing to do is to make a fun, compelling experience that has replayability and build off it. And the competitive scene will grow around that organically. If it's not growing organically, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's like what Nathan always says. It's not the developers that choose that it's a competitive game. It's the community that chooses whether it's a competitive game or not. It's all about the community. But yeah, it's interesting. Population 1 has done so much, and I think they've demonstrated that how to keep the game fresh. But you said that you're still a bit bored of it, and is it just because of the core gameplay mechanics you're bored of?
So. When I initially beta tested it, I gave my feedback. It's like I didn't like the simplified reloading mechanics. I didn't like some of the more simplified. I suppose they dumbed down a lot of the gameplay, and a lot of the VR experience to make it more accessible to new people. And eventually, to be honest, I changed my mind on it. I did come around to think, you know what? Actually, I think that is the right way to do it. If you want to make an accessible shooter that some 5-year-old kid is gonna go, oh, Fortnite, and they're gonna pick up the Quest and put it on and start playing it. They nailed it. They absolutely, and I'm no disrespect to any players because I liked it. Like I like the experience. All right, you still feel satisfied reloading a gun. Granted your ammo isn't on your body, but to be honest, that throws up that's something that has issues with IK as it is anyway. So it was the right design choice the way they went about it. They made some shortcuts though with like scopes and stuff like that, which is what's kind of killed it for me because I love to snipe. They also didn't add a melee mechanic in because I think they were just worried about people hitting their walls or something, or I don't know, maybe melee was too hard for them. But there's no physical kind of hitting anybody with, so I can't stab anybody, I can't snipe anybody. You can see the issue already, right?
Well, I don't know if you know, but in their latest little clip, they showed a clip of tagging a wall with a team tag. In the wheel it had a melee looking icon. So maybe they are bringing melee combat to Population 1.
Do you mean graffiti, Mike, when you said tagging, or did you mean something else?
Like a graffiti tag.
Like the old Counter-Strike sprays. Now we've got
exactly. Same thing. Yeah.
To be honest, right, I saw that and I was just like, oh my god, these assholes. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it, all right, because they honestly could be putting so much new content into the game, right? But the best they can do is just keep adding skins to get people to spend money on the game, which I get it. They want to make money and make fine, but to be honest, I was worried when they initially introduced skins that their development cycle was going to start, and the development of the game was going to start orientating around the sale of those skins. So before you know it, the game isn't so much about adding substance and replayability and, new content. It's just about selling you what's in the shop and getting you to buy into that kind of like that whole ecosystem.
That's exactly what I said a couple of months back, probably just nicely worded.
Yeah, exactly. You're probably better articulating it than me because
No, I said you
super handsome Belgian person. But the rest of us have to work with what we've got, okay? And some of us have an IQ in the single digits, so we're trying. So yeah, but I mean, so my problem with that game is I think they almost hit a perfectly winning format. They almost had it perfect. If they just didn't screw up on the grenades, because it's a simplified button click, which I think is just so weak. Scopes, which again, I think they just really dropped the ball on that one. And then, though, I to be honest, that's the only two real issues I have at the moment. I think the climbing and everything else they nailed, but those are the two big things. And also then no real dedicated like core server mode or server browser, dedicated server mode, so that you can have a competitive scene in.
I love that you say that, Viper, because every time I talk about a server browser, I get shot down on places like Reddit, and they're like, the feck, what age are you from? Like, how old do you have to be to want a server browser? Like, I just want a button. And it's like, no, I don't want a button. I want to pick what I join.
Yeah, see, I can relate. I like having I find sometimes I'm on my lunch break. I just want to, I'm just cleaning the blood off, and I just want to go straight into a game. There we go, right? But there are times when you want a competitive scene, you want to have custom matches, you need a server browser system. You need to be able to join a specific game with a password so you can get in there and compete on an organized level. But yeah, Zim, I do think you're pretty old though.
Son of a bitch.
One last question. For anyone that's kind of wanting to get into the competitive scene, what's the best way for them to sort of get involved and sort of integrate into that sort of community?
Okay, so have you ever seen a Rocky montage? So I think the first place to start is in Discords. That's for example with Onward or Pablo, you can join the Discord. You can immediately get talking to people. There's always teams recruiting. There's always friendly people just looking to play. Sometimes it's as simple as just you meet someone in a game, get talking, add them to your Steam friends list. Say, hey, listen, I was thinking you want to make a team. We can start, playing league matches and stuff. Oh yeah, sure, let's do it. And then that's how the best friendships are born, So I would just say start with Discord, start with just people you meet that you like, start with friends, and just go from there. Trust me, I wouldn't go in to be like, I want to win lots of money, because there is no money. I'd be going into it because it's something you enjoy. You enjoy a competitive kind of experience, a strategic experience, a more thoughtful experience, and a more intense experience. Then find people you enjoy playing with, bring them together, and assemble and go.
Can you give us an example of what that would sound like from a Rick and Morty's voice perspective?
Geez, Morty, just shove this up your ass and start playing video games.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Viper. I think it is interesting to get an insight into something, because although we jump into Pop 1, and Pop 1 has been one of my favorite games, certainly over the last few months, it's really interesting to see it from a really super competitive scene. And whenever we've played together, Viper's just literally carried everyone in the game, and we've all won and had such a great time. So it is a pleasure to play with you and have you on the show as well. So I really appreciate it, dude.
Real pleasure.
Listen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. I've been wanting to come on this podcast and embarrass you guys for years. So
you talked about it at OC when we met last time. You're like, I want to be your ambassador.
I love it. He's giving me so much flack because of me wiping him up in Solaris, I think. But the thing that really broke my heart is we were meant to play on a couple of games and didn't really get much chance. Medal of Honor was the latest one. I still wanted us to play that together, but
it was a nightmare getting that to install. But I mean, again, there's another game that was made by AAA Studio. I mean, and it just it's like they were just a bit behind what was kind of where we were at.
Definitely, without doubt. Okay, well now let's move on to releases. We've got a couple of interesting releases this week, I think.
Yeah. Unlike normal weeks, normal weeks.
Unlike normal weeks.
So I'll cover off. I picked two cherries out of the cherry bush, cherry tree. cherries grow on
Get your
trees.
hands out of my bush, Sim.
I'll try. It's so difficult. So the first one, as chat has been enjoying, they've been talking about this. There's a game called Warplanes, World War I Fighters. Thanks to Mike for picking this one up, which was on SideQuest, has since January 15th, and is something that I'll say, if you're interested in the kind of cockpit-based flight sim, then don't get too concerned about what I'm showing you on screen at the minute, because that's the iPad version of this. This is a studio that has done a ton of sales on a variety of different types of games, but they've got about 3 different branched warplane games focusing on World War I fighters. Started off on iOS and Android. They've got a Switch build. This is now their side quest, so it's only available on Quest build, called World War Fighters. So the tagline here being warplanes. You've got, at the moment, a free demo you can play. You can go over to itch.io and you can find this. On SideQuest, you'll link it right there. And actually, they've got a nice homepage that talks about all the games that this studio, HomeNet Games, a Polish studio, have developed. This one features a number of classic World War I planes. And like you guys, I haven't memorized a whole ton of World War I planes. So let me tell you the planes that this has. They're great. Absolutely beautiful. Right. So there's the Fokker E1. There's the Fokker D8. There's the Fokker D8B. There's the Junkers D1. And there's the Fokker DRI. And that one was famously flown by the Red Baron. So if you want to play like you're the Red Baron, drop some bombs outside of your plane and play with the yoke, then man, this side quest game, beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
And if you want to learn more about these planes, go watch the movie Meet the Fockers.
I like it.
Lame joke.
I like it.
But I have to say, like, I've bought this game. I haven't played it yet, but I really liked the fact that they integrated so well into itch.io on SideQuest. Yeah. So you can literally purchase this, and then it like is instantly transferred and downloaded straight onto your Quest, and the whole process is super slick. So I was really impressed with that, but looking forward to checking that out this week.
So yeah. The price, because I didn't mention it yet, $10 for the game, which has like 2 campaigns in it, and that's about £8. As I mentioned, there's a free demo, and just be aware, if you're listening to this podcast in January, you may want to buy this now, because as February comes along, they're going to up the price of the full game to $15. So 50% increase in price. Aside from that, I would just mention the type of gameplay you can expect. You're facing off against enemy fighters. I think you would have expected that. You get to bomb strategic targets, destroy naval forces, protect your base and cities from bombing raids. So I think just in general, if you're looking for flight sim stuff, this is a nice way to jump in with your Quest. Again, you're going to need a PC or a laptop to be able to get the APK files over, but even the demo's available and gives you 2 levels to toy around with to see if you want to buy the full thing. There you go. Second one up today. All right, so this one's really funny. This game is called Right the Edge of Atlantis. Now, Mike recently tortured himself in Myst VR, which landed recently back in December. Originally, this was meant to launch around that same time and is actually inspired by Myst. It's a VR adventure style puzzle game. So you actually have this adventure, and as I said, it's very much a puzzle-laden experience that you have, mostly based in terms of like historical references. So they've based a lot of the landscapes and the geometry that you see in Greek, Aztec, or Egyptian elements. Throughout the course of the adventure, the players will constantly have to weigh the consequences of their actions, such as moral decisions. Quick wits and an eye for secrets will determine one of 4 distinct endings and the fate of both Atlantis and the player. You get to wield supernatural powers, so this doesn't just get stuck in kind of standard play. And the purpose of the game as you're exploring, you're trying to prevent the end of Atlantis. Seeing as they have 3 endings, I bet one of those is not a successful ending. Aside from that, I would just say from the trailer that we're running for our audio listeners, they feature only teleport locomotion. There were no details that I could find that pointed to a smooth locomotion system, although with some other puzzle games that I've played that hasn't been a problem, but it is certainly my preference. Aside from that, there are complex mechanics to solve, challenging puzzles, and logic skills, so it's not all just physical based. Some of it is mental challenges as well, as you manipulate the environment to your advantage. One other thing that the developers had said about Right is that they have spelled this out as kind of a single continuous experience. So you aren't loading levels and things like that. It's kind of an end-to-end journey that you have.
Jeez, it sounds like a day at work. Like a heavy mental experience. You need to solve logical puzzles.
Okay, Rowdy, stop rubbing it in that you have an intensive job mentally. God.
So this is dropping on the 27th of Jan. I don't have a price on it. It'll be available for Steam PSVr. This is from, my God, help me here. The developer is called Orichalcum Pictures. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And that is it. That's your 2 releases of the week. Warplanes, World War I Fighters, Right, The Eye of Atlantis. Looks like a teleport-based puzzle game. That's what we have to look forward to in the next week.
And Gorn. Gorn is
yeah.
coming to Quest on the 28th of June, so don't forget that. It's Thursday, so that'll be fun if you want to destroy your house like we talked about on last week's show.
Oh, God, yes.
So yeah, we're going to wrap up the show. So thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate it. Just a reminder that this is a weekly VR, AR, and MR talk show, live streamed every Saturday on YouTube and on Twitch. The show goes live at 7 p.m. in Europe, 6 p.m. in the UK, and 12 midday in Central US. Also check out the audio version, which is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the show and had fun, especially with our guest Viper. So thank you to him for joining us.
Shout out to Mom, Dad, and Mike Hunt.
And also thanks to SynthRiders for sponsoring this episode of the show. We'll of course be back on next week's show, and I think Nathan will be back then as well. So if you've missed him, he will be back from his holiday. But until then, have a great week in VR. Take care, and bye-bye for now.
Adios.
See you later.
Bye.
See you, everybody.
Bye bye.